morning. Happy Friday. This is Talking Sports with Evan. I appreciate you all listening, watching the show. You can find Talking Sports with Evan podcast anywhere you get your podcast. You can find the live video stream on X at Evan with Sports, on YouTube, or on Facebook at Talking Sports with Evan. Appreciate you all tuning in. Appreciate you all listening. Have had a big uptick in listeners and viewers lately. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking a few minutes or several minutes or however long you've listened to the show. I appreciate your support. And, just very happy to see that there's people, my numbers are growing and there's people tuning in. Now, this Talking Sports with Evan podcast is mostly talking Wisconsin sports, but I do and current events in Wisconsin sports, but I do talk national as well. And tonight's show, we are going to be I'm going to be talking about the Packers loss against the Bears, the Packers upcoming game against the Eagles, and then talk about some NFL coaching positions that are currently open. I'm going to give my thought on which ones I feel are the best jobs and why. And I think there's 6 currently open. Let me double check. You have, correct, 6 jobs currently open. You have the Bears, you have the Patriots, you have the Jets, you have Jacksonville, you have the Saints, you have the Raiders. So those are the 6 jobs open. You also have a couple of general manager positions open as well. The Titans, the Jets, the Raiders, I believe might be it for general managers. And you have a number of coordinator positions open too. And I'm going to give my thoughts on the job openings and which I feel is the best spot. If I was a person who wanted an NFL head coaching job, obviously I'm nowhere near qualified for that. But if I was, which job I would prefer out of the 6? I'm going to give a discussion on that too. But before I get into NFL news, before I get into the Packers, before I give my NFL playoff predictions, Milwaukee Bucks. Want to give a quick shout out to the Milwaukee Bucks, winners of 3 in a row. They beat the Toronto Raptors on Monday, 128-104. They beat the San Antonio Spurs on Wednesday, 121-105, and they beat the Orlando Magic tonight, 109-106, and that was after they lost 2 in a row, and the Bucks had a back and forth thing going on. And they lose, win, win, lose, lose, win, lose, lose, win, win, win. So now Sunday they play the Knicks on the road, and hopefully they can get the victory. And the win over Orlando. Hopefully they get to win on Sunday over the Knicks. These are the games the Bucks need to win right now if they want to climb back to try to get a top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference. Top 3, pretty much probably not going to happen, as I am about to pull up the NBA standing. I guess the 3 could still happen with the Knicks, but the Knicks are a team you got to beat. But the Bucks have Orlando ahead of them by a game. The Bucks are currently sitting in the 5 spot with Orlando ahead of them by a game, and the Knicks up ahead of them by a few games. Their Knicks are 8.5 games out of first place in the East, and the Bucks are 13 games out of first, if you want to do the math. The Pacers at 21-18, tied with the Bucks for that 5th spot. So the Bucks have work to do. The Bucks have definitely some work to do if they want to try to climb the ladder and get it to that 3 or that 4 spot. I don't think the 3 spots can happen, but I think they can definitely get into the 4. And if you're the 3 or the 4, you're playing either the 6th seed or the 5th seed, and you not have to worry about the play-in tournament and who you might have to play in the first round. You already know who you're going to have to play. But another nice game from Giannis. A pretty solid game from Dame, and the Bucks, as I said, got the nice victory here today. Just as a Bucks fan, I like to see it. So moving on, the Packers fell to the Bears 24-22 to close out the 2024 NFL regular season. And now we're playoff time. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the Packers' loss against the Bears. I think we all have heard about it. But a couple things I will mention is, one, I like Matt LaFleur. I think Matt LaFleur is a fine coach. I think at times Matt LaFleur does an outstanding job putting his guys in the best position possible to make a play. However, with that said, there are things about Matt LaFleur that frustrate me sometimes. Things about Matt LaFleur that make me want to put my head through a wall sometimes. And against the Bears, we kind of saw that happen. I think the biggest issue I have is kind of the mixed message that he sent. And I know part of it was injuries with Christian Watson blowing out his knee. Then Jordan Love hurts the elbow. Then you pull Josh Jacobs out of the game after 6 carries and a touchdown because you don't want to get him hurt. I get that. But it kind of sent a mixed message. You talk about the importance of the game, and then you don't coach it like it's an important game. That's the frustrating part. Don't talk about how important this game is, and it's the Bears. It should be important. Beating the Bears should be an important thing on your schedule. I know the ultimate goal is playoff success and get to the Super Bowl, but in reality, you should be motivated to face the Bears. But he kind of talks and stresses the importance of the game, but then doesn't coach like it's important. And I get the Bears, really nothing to play for. Packers kind of did coming in, but it's basically a glorified preseason game. But Matt LaFleur, I don't think he really knew what he wanted to do in this game. He even said himself he was hoping that you would have a big enough lead in the second half that you can pull your starters. But again, he didn't coach like that was his plan. He coached passive at times, and he struggled to get Jordan Love into rhythm when Jordan Love was throwing the football before his injury. He ended the day 7 of 12 for 69 yards before the elbow injury basically hit his funny bone and wasn't able to come back. Malik Willis, 10 of 13 for 136. Another nice game for Malik Willis. But the other issue I have with Matt LaFleur is his clock management sometimes is atrocious. And it's not the first time. This game wasn't the first time he had this atrocious of clock management. I think it was against the Seahawks or the Saints. Maybe it was both, where you basically got bailed out. I think it was the Seahawks. You got bailed out on a pass interference call, which was a good pass interference call, but you got the ball in with Seattle. You got the ball around midfield. It's a 2-minute warning, and the best you can do is a short field goal because you got super conservative and you let too much time run off the clock. And if it wasn't for a pass interference call, you would have been kicking a 50-plus yard field goal instead of a short chip shot field goal because of clock mismanagement. Against the Bears, same thing. Clock mismanagement. You got the ball after a turnover, and you call a timeout with 58 seconds to go. The clock was running. The Bears have one timeout left. The clock's running. Force the Bears to use their last timeout or run the clock down until you have to take it, and then you attempt the long field goal. That's ideally what you should have done. But you quickly call a timeout with a lot of time left on the play clock. You stop the clock with 58 seconds, then you kick the field goal, and then you give the Bears enough time to get in the field goal range and kick the game-winning field goal. If you would have ran another 5 seconds to 8 seconds off that clock, guess what? The Bears aren't having enough time to spike the ball and kick the field goal. They spiked the ball 3 seconds to go. If you run another 5 seconds off, game's over. But clock mismanagement was bad for LaFleur. And that's going to send you home in the playoffs if you mismanage a clock that bad. It's going to send you home. And I think those are a couple of my biggest gripes I have with Matt LaFleur. Sending missed messages on the importance of the game and then just butchering a clock management. I also think sometimes he tries to be the smartest guy in the room, and 4th and 3, you do an end around to Jayden Reed. Don't do end arounds on 4th and 3. It hasn't worked all season long. What makes you think it's going to work now? In reality, what makes you think an end around on 4th and 3 is going to work when it hasn't worked all season long? Back to the game overall against the Bears. First of all, Malik Willis is not a better quarterback than Jordan Love. Malik Willis is a backup quarterback who the Packers water down the game plan and the playbook quite a bit when he's in the game. And then the other thing that was frustrating on Sunday was defensively, you have a horse collar tackle that was boneheaded that moved the Bears 15 yards. And then on 3rd and 11, your safeties are 30 yards down the field when all the Bears need to do is gain about 15 yards and they're in field goal range. Frustrating. I think the biggest frustrating thing about the Packers 2024 season is they finished the year 11-6. All but one of those losses were by less than one score. The game against Detroit in the monsoon at Lambeau Field, which I was at, that was a 10-point loss. But even then, if you look at the statistics, the Packers outgained the Lions by quite a bit. But every loss the Packers had, except for one, has been by less than a score, field goal difference, or maybe you need a touchdown at the end. I have to go back and look at every single one. But every loss has been by within one score this season for the Packers. Even the Detroit game where it was a 10-point game, it was Green Bay's game for the taking if they didn't make a lot of mistakes. And that's been the MO for the Packers in every single one of the losses is self-inflicted wounds. Untimely turnovers, untimely drops, untimely penalties, boneheaded penalties, running bad routes, making bad throws, being careless with the football, not tackling well. All things that is self-inflicted. And that's the other frustrating thing. And then also every loss, they start slow. They struggle to get the ball moving. They struggle to get points early on in the game. And typically now they have to play catch up because the other team jumps out to a lead, hence 28-0 Viking lead at Lambeau Field, and the Packers end up losing by 3. You dig yourselves into too deep of a hole early on due to a slow start, due to self-inflicted wounds that now you have to play catch up, and then you can't get a stop on defense when it matters most at the end of the game. That's what's frustrating about the 2024 Green Bay Packers. Detroit, Minnesota, Philadelphia are not head and shoulders better than Green Bay. Green Bay just they make their biggest and dumbest mistakes when they play those teams. And a lot of them are self-inflicted. They're unforced errors. Untimely holds, as I mentioned, dropped passes. 4th and 2 against the Vikings in Minnesota, Jayden Reed drops would have been a first down conversion. That's an example of what I'm talking about. And that's why I have confidence that the Packers can beat the Eagles. If the Packers play a, quote, perfect game where they limit to eliminate the untimely drops, the untimely penalties, and they play the game we all know the Packers are capable of playing, the Packers have a chance against the Eagles. The Eagles are a very good team. So is Green Bay. The difference is the Eagles tend to not make mistakes, where the Packers from time to time play like the youngest team in the league. And it's going to be week 19 technically in wild. I'm not going to call it super wild card weekend. Wild card weekend. Your 19 is going to be your 19th game of the season. You can't use the youngest team in the league excuse anymore because now you've played in 19 professional football games this season for those young guys. So it's time to grow out of those mistakes. And what the Packers are going to have going in their favor against Philadelphia this go around is probably their best player on the defense right now, Edgerrin Cooper. When you played the last time, he was limited to 10 snaps, and he just spent the whole training camp and preseason dealing with the hip injury. Well, Cooper's not good. He's going to probably play a hell of a lot more than 10 snaps. He's probably going to play probably about 75 to 80% of the snaps. Evan Williams didn't really know what he was yet, and he's coming back from injury, hopefully. He's questionable. But Evan Williams has been a very good deep safety along with Xavier McKinney. That's allowed Bullard to be more of a slot guy, and Bullard's been a pretty good slot guy. When he's been around the line of scrimmage, he's been much better than when he's had to be back in coverage. And with Evan Williams healthy, or at least playing in the game, Bullard can play more towards the line of scrimmage. So that's working in the Packers' way. The offensive line is as healthy as it's ever been. They think they've started the same 5 guys in every game except for one. That was when Josh Myers didn't play against Detroit. That they got that going for them. Obviously, you got Josh Jacobs working in your favor too. He's been your bell cow. He's been your workhorse. Things you don't have going in your favor is you don't have Christian Watson. He tore his ACL, out for the remainder of this season and probably out for a good chunk of next season. You lost your deep threat. You got to find a way to force the Eagles to not stack around the line of scrimmage, not flood the underneath stuff, because that's where Jayden Reed tends to pick up, do most of his damage, is between the hashes underneath. You don't have a deep threat right now. You're going to have Romeo Doubs back from illness, but he's not a deep threat. You have Dontavion Wicks, but he's not a deep threat. You're going to probably have to use Luke Musgrave a little bit in that deep threat role to try to open things up underneath. You got to open things up for Tucker Kraft. You have to open things up for Jayden Reed. You have to open things up for Malik Heath. And Christian Watson does that. He's such speed that he can get over the top of the defense, and you're going to usually have an extra safety there to prevent the deep ball. And without Watson, you don't have that. Now, you can get creative on trying to threaten them with the deep ball, and that's through play action. And as one of my friends, Scott, said, is Jordan Love should be under center a lot more than he has been. And when you're under center, you're going to open up play action a little bit better too. Because Packers do run out of the shotgun quite a bit, but running from under the center, play action from under center to me is going to probably get the defense selling out a little bit more than they would if it was shotgun. So I think you got to do more do more play action from under center, less shotgun, because I think also from under center, it kind of gives you more options on things you can do too for misdirection and everything. I'm not saying eliminate the shotgun altogether, but last year Jordan Love seemed more comfortable playing from under the center. This year when he's been healthy, he seemed to be more comfortable playing from under the center. It's when you're forcing him to be in the shotgun significant amount of times, that's when he just struggles to get into rhythm. And the big thing is you got to get Jordan Love in rhythm. I get you got Josh Jacobs and you can pound and pound and pound away with him, but you also got to get Jordan Love some rhythm. And I get that if you get the running game going, it can open up the passing game a little bit, but you got to get Jordan Love in rhythm early. I think that's one of his biggest problems. He struggles to get into rhythm early because you're running the ball nonstop, and it takes a half of football for him to really get moving with it. But the Eagles, very good team. Saquon Barkley should get MVP consideration. Jalen Hurts, very good quarterback. Their offensive line, led by Lane Johnson at right tackle, very good. Defensively, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are two very good very good defensive linemen, and they make things very difficult to run on. And Zach Braun, Braun, one of their middle linebackers, who former Wisconsin Badger, he made things extremely difficult in week one in Brazil. Their secondary and Mitchell, Nickelback, DeJean, Darius Slay Jr. at the other corner. Their corners are pretty good. So, and you're probably going to get a lot of man. So you probably need to run a lot of man beaters and meshes and play action and double moves and things like that to try to get the Eagles on their heels a little bit. And Vic Fangio's defense can get the ball moved on it. We've seen it happen. Washington did it. And the Packers have had some success moving the ball in week one against this Fangio defense. But the thing is, you have to get creative and with that football a little bit. But this is going to be a tough game for Green Bay. I think I've predicted Green Bay to win every single game this year because I've honestly felt they have had a legit shot to win every single game this year. I know you don't win every game in the season. That's just not how the NFL works. But I truly think the Packers are incredibly capable of winning this game. Will they? Probably not. I'm going to be a realist here. I think this game is going to come down to the wire. I think this game is going to basically be a carbon copy of what we saw in week one, where especially the last drive of the game for the Eagles, the Packers cannot get the Eagles off the field when it matters most, and the Eagles are going to just eat the clock and kick a game-winning field goal late to send the Packers home. The Packers have won as a 7th seed before. They just did it a year ago. The first time a 7th seed has won since they expanded the playoffs to 14 teams. They know how to do it, but unfortunately, much tougher challenge. I know Dallas was a good team last year, but I think this Eagle team is just better than that Dallas team last year. And Barkley's better than the running game Dallas had last year. A.J. Brown is better than C.D. Lamb. Dallas Goedert's better than Jake Ferguson. And I think Hurts is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. And I think the Eagles are better coached. Nothing against McCarthy. And defensively, Vic Fangio, he's been around a long time, and he can make things difficult for a young quarterback. And Jordan Love's still a young quarterback. He's still in his second year as a starter, and there's things that Fangio might be able to throw at him that he hasn't seen yet. But I think 4.5 is the spread currently, and I think we're going to see another close game. But like I said, I think the Packers defense is going to struggle to get off the field late in the game, and the Eagles are going to be able to kick a game-winning field goal to move on to the second round of the playoffs. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Packers win. I want to see the Packers advance, but I think without having Jair Alexander, without having Christian Watson, I think it's just going to be too much to overcome against the Eagles. And unfortunately, the Packers haven't shown that they can play a mistake-free football game against a very good opponent yet. And I think that's going to be their undoing. And so I think they're going to be going home, as much as it pains me to say that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope in Talking Sports with Evan next week, I get to talk about the Packers advancing in the playoffs and getting ready to play Detroit. But it's just hard to say that right now. So moving on, other NFL playoff action before I jump into the coaching openings in the league and who I think is going to be the best job is some other predictions. Tomorrow afternoon, for like the 80th year in a row, the Houston Texans are playing at 3:30. I know it's not 80th year, but it seems that way. Every playoff game the Houston Texans have ever had has been at 3:30 on a Saturday. But anyways, Chargers versus Texans. This is the game. I'm sorry, Texans fans, but this is a no-brainer for me. Chargers are going to win. I think the Chargers are going to win. The Texans are beat up. And I just trust the coaching staff of the Chargers more than I do the Texans right now. The other wild card game on Saturday, you have the Steelers at the Ravens. And I think the Ravens are 9.5 and I think the Ravens are going to win. I would predict them to win, but I think the Steelers are going to keep it closer than that. Lamar Jackson finally had a good game against Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, but Pittsburgh always seems to give him fits, and he always seems to struggle a little bit against the Steelers. But I do think the Ravens get the win. Broncos and the Bills. Sunday afternoon, 12 o'clock. I think the Bills are going to win, but don't sleep on the Broncos. They have a very good defense, and they're playing very good football right now. But I think the Bills get the win. I already talked about the Eagles and the Packers. Commanders and the Buccaneers. This game's likely going to be a shootout, and I think Tampa Bay is going to win. Daniels, as a rookie, I think the spotlight of the playoffs might be a little too bright for him in his rookie year. Tampa Bay is going to move on. And the Monday night game, which is now going to be played in Arizona between the Vikings and the Rams, I think the Rams are going to win. I think the reason why the Rams beat the Vikings earlier in the year is they did a poor job of protecting Sam Darnold, and I think we're going to see more of that in this game. And I think the Rams are going to win. So again, Rams, Buccaneers, Eagles, Bills, Ravens, and Chargers are going to be the winners over the weekend. So that is my playoff prediction. Moving on. NFL coaching position. There's 6 current openings. Chicago, New England, the New York Jets, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New Orleans Saints, the Las Vegas Raiders. Those are the 6 jobs. And for me personally, looking at the jobs, if I had to pick what I felt would be the best job available right now, I would pick New England. And I know you're going to think I'm crazy for saying that because they fired Jared Mayo after 1 year. But the thing is, the Patriots are usually a pretty stable organization. They usually don't make decisions that quickly. I don't know why Mayo was fired after his 1 year, but you look at the Patriots with over $100 million in cap space. It looks like they hit on a quarterback in Drake May. And it's just a matter of building the roster from there. Get a better offensive line, get some better skilled guys, get some defenders, and I think the Patriots is to me the best job that's available right now. Again, I just think their front office is very stable. Elliott Wolf is the de facto general manager, and I think they're the most stable organization of all the jobs that are available right now. Outside of that, I don't know if there's a job available if I'm a head coach that I would want. And I'm going to go for the Chicago Bears. You have Caleb Williams. You have a pretty solid wide receiver core. You have a good core there. But the front office is a hot mess. You have a GM that's likely on its way out if the team doesn't improve next year. So now you're going to have to figure out how to work with a new general manager if you're the head coach. And the Bears, they have a lot of cap space in 2025, but they haven't shown me that they know how to build a winning culture and build a winning team. They haven't shown that. They won the Super Bowl in '85. They made the playoffs here and there in the 2000s and the whatever, but they haven't shown me that they can be a team that is stable enough to build a winning culture. And now it's Kevin Warren's turn, and I don't feel that Kevin Warren is a very good team president either. I already talked about the Patriots, the New York Jets, new general manager, new head coach, a roster in complete disarray. Garrett Williams is rumored to be on the trading block. The defense, you have young talent, but the defense underachieved, especially after Robert Saleh got fired. And you have an owner that seems to want to be involved in player personnel and Woody Johnson. So how much power is a GM really going to have? And how much power is the coach really going to have? Again, another unstable, frustrating front office to work with. And you don't have a quarterback. Aaron Rodgers is likely not returning. And even if Aaron Rodgers does, he's a 41-year-old quarterback who looked 41 at times this season. Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville, kind of. I think they got some talented players. I think they're close, and they play in one of the worst divisions in the NFL. You have Houston, you have Jacksonville, you have Tennessee, and you have Indianapolis. That's arguably the worst division in football. But the problem I have in Jacksonville is Trent Baalke. From what I've read, from what I've listened to, from what I've heard, he's very hard to work with. He is very hard to work with, and he probably should have been shown the door to. In all reality, they should have started fresh with the front office and bring in a new GM, bring in a new head coach, and go from there. But again, like Chicago, in Jacksonville, you're likely going to be playing 1 year with Trent Baalke as your general manager, and then you're going to have to get to know a whole new guy at the general manager position in 2026. If I'm a head coach, that's concerning to me due to how unstable that is. The Saints, good owner, but crappy general manager and crappy cap situation. You don't have a quarterback. You are like what, negative 50 to negative 60 over you're like 50 to 60 million over the cap already. So you can't bring in free agents. You have to cut, or restructure. You don't have the ability to significantly improve the roster very quickly because you don't have the money because you're in salary cap hell and you don't know how to get out of it. Mickey Loomis has literally no clue how to get out of salary cap hell. They've been just kicking the can down the road for the last decade now, and it's starting to catch up to them because they don't have the ability to make a lot of moves. So you're going to have to hit on all your draft picks. You're going to have to develop them fairly quickly. And again, you don't have a quarterback. Derek Carr was not good, and your other options aren't any better either. I hope whoever the Saints hire, they're patient with the coach, and they don't try to point the blame on him if there's some early struggles. And then the Raiders. Now you need a new GM. They fired Antonio Pierce after one season, and you allow Antonio Pierce to meet with the media to do his postseason press conference, and then you fire him. Why are you putting him out there to face the media to fire him a day later? And then you're going to keep the GM, and then a day later you fire the GM too. So you press conference, fire, GM staying, fire. Mark Davis is hot potatoing his coaches. I think they're up to 5 coaches since 2020, 5 coaches counting interim since they moved to Vegas. It's ridiculous, and it's the definition of unstable. I think the only truly good job is New England. I think some of the other jobs could be better if you had better front offices, but bad teams stay bad for a reason. And the Raiders are near the bottom of the standings every year for a reason. The Saints have been lately for a reason. Jacksonville has been near the bottom more than they've been near the top for a reason. The Jets, again, for a reason. And the Bears, for a reason. Bad teams stay bad for a reason, and it's typically because of your front office and your ownership. And that makes me happy to be a Packer fan because I would rather, I know ultimately winning the Super Bowl is what we all want, but I would rather make the playoffs every year and fall short, unfortunately, than be in the position of any of these 6 teams that are looking for new head coaches, because there's a good chance that out of these 6 teams looking for new head coaches right now, that half of them are going to need new coaches again within 2 to 3 years. So again, bad teams stay bad for reasons. And with that said, I appreciate you all watching the live stream. Hope you check out the podcast version that'll be published in a little bit. This has been Talking Sports with Evan. Hope you all have a great and safe and wonderful weekend watching playoff football. And I'll be back with you all next week, hopefully talking about a Packer playoff win.